Hello and welcome to the Outdoor View. I'm Bill Gaines, your host, and this is the place where we educate, connect, and learn to protect our outdoor traditions. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of having with us Tom Mailey from Get the Net Fishing Guide Service. How are you doing today, Tom?
I'm doing good, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great, absolutely great. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you. I've had the pleasure of fishing with you several times out on a variety of different venues here in Northern California. And we always have a good time. We always catch fish, but you're just a fun guy to spend some time with as well. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you today and then kind of sharing, some of the things that you have to offer for people out there that may want to get out on the water with
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share whatever I can.
Well, I know you're an absolute passionate fisherman. I mean, you love to fish. I love to fish too, but I don't know of anybody that loves to fish more than you do. And I'm pretty excited about your Get the Net guide service. How long have you been fishing, Tom?
I've been fishing my whole life. I can't remember the first time I held a rod in my hand. My dad was a fisherman up in Puget Sound and grew up in Washington State. I grew up in Olympia, but my dad, and I was born in Tacoma. And I've got a brother who's 13 years older than me, and they were already fishing in Tacoma when little Tommy came along. And so they were taking me out fishing when I was, before I can remember, 2, 3, 4 years old. And we moved down to Olympia when I was 6 or 7. And my dad started like really taking me out. I kind of got past the whiny kid stage when I was about 10 or 11. So he started taking me out more then. And I'm just, it's just in my DNA.
It's funny because I started fishing when I was probably about 5 or 6 as well. And all my memories of fishing with my dad are I would always manage to get the fishing line on my reel in an absolute bird's nest.
Yep.
I would do that every time, and I'd hand it to him and go, "Dad," and he'd go,
Dad, help.
What
Blows me away is now whenever I go out fishing, I look at my watch and it's like, crap, it's 10 o'clock already. It goes by so fast. And like when I was 6, 7, 8, I can remember just bawling my eyes out because 45 minutes had gone by and this sucks. It's so boring. We're not catching anything. I want to go in. And there were days when we weren't catching fish where it just seemed like it was eternity. And it's just so bizarre how things have flip-flopped, over the years. I think most people have experienced that if they grew up fishing at all. So yeah, it's just pretty trippy.
No, I know what you mean. The older you get, the more you appreciate just being out there on the water. And what's that saying? The worst day fishing is better than the best day working, right?
Yeah. Most of the time that's true, unless you've got clients.
Yeah, but it's still nice to be out on that water. Sometimes after the hectic day or hectic pace of everyday life, you get out there and it's quiet. You're often out there with some good friends or family, what have you, and it just gives you a chance to realize what's right with the world.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've realized. I just started this guide business last year. So last year was my first full season. It was mostly out of Folsom. And it brought me kind of back to what's important about going out, because quite a few of the people that I took out just simply haven't been out on the water. That I've had a couple different people who were just like marveling at Folsom Lake. Like, my God, I didn't realize all of this was here. And you see it through their eyes. And so you're seeing it through fresh eyes. And it's a nice reminder and kind of puts you back into, it centers you, where you're supposed to be again. Because I can get really caught up in, I'm not getting anything, or, I want to get more or whatever. And I got to step back and remember that for a lot of people, it's just fun being out on the boat. And when you get right down to it, that's what it's all about.
I imagine you have people, I know, because as you know, we have a boat as well. I don't fish out of it much, but I spend a lot of time out on the water, and it's amazing the number of people that have never been on a boat. You get them out there and they go, "I've never been on a boat before." And you're like, "What?" Right?
Yeah.
So you do quite a service when it comes to helping, expand people that have, unable to do that.
Yeah, and it's important to keep that in mind. And I find that up in Washington State too. I used to take my friends fishing, and I had friends, they lived on the water and stuff, and so we would go water skiing in the summertime and fishing and stuff. There's so many friends though that their parents they never went down to the beach, and so going out, taking them out I think that's where I really kind of got the bug to take people out. I love taking people out, especially if they've never been before or only been a little bit. I really, really enjoy that because I love introducing people to something that I think they'll find pretty cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. Well, like I say, I've been out on the water with you several times, and I know how much fun you are to be out on the water, regardless of how hot or cold the fishing may be. So,
yeah.
Well, now, so you've been fishing for decades. I won't tell them how many decades, but for a long time. So you must have, there you go. Yeah, right. So you must have some favorite fishing stories. You have any you want to share with our listeners?
My brother will probably kill me for telling this, but yeah, we there's a place up in Straits Juan de Fuca in Washington, between Washington and Vancouver Island. It's called CQ, and it's just this little fishing village. And we would make probably 2 or 3 trips up there a year to go fishing. And when my dad got a little bit older, I would go fishing, with my brother. My brother and I would go up. And so we were up there one time with his wife, who wasn't a fisherman, but she was out in the boat with us. And it was in July, and there were big kings running through. And my brother hooked into a king of a lifetime. Like it was just about dark. And this thing was, I don't know how big it was. We never got to see it. He fought it for 45 minutes. He fought it until well past dark. And we never got to see it. Came close a couple of times. I think had it been daylight, we would have seen it, but had the net ready, and he gets the thing up, and the fish is like right there, like the weight's going to pop out of the water at any moment. I'm probably 15 or 16 at the time, and all of a sudden the rod's going like this, and then it just goes boing. And my brother he's a passionate guy, and I'm like looking at him, and I know he wanted this fish bad. There were a lot of guys bringing in fish that were 35, 45 pounds that weekend we were there. And he's real calm, and he puts the rod down. He reels it up. Line had just snapped. His leader had snapped. Sets the rod down in the boat. And I'm like, not saying anything. I put the net away. And he just like really calmly goes over and sits down in the driver's seat, starts the engine up because we've been mooching, and he just kind of sat there for a second. He's looking out the windshield of the boat, the lights of the harbor where we're going to go. And right at that moment, his wife goes, "Dan, it's just a fish." And he
wrong thing to say.
Like, the cartoons when the cartoon guy's head opens up and like volcano. That was my brother. He was like, "Ah!" And I think they could hear him all the way to Victoria. He got it all out at that point in time, and all the way in, he got it all out. It was that's one of my favorite memories, but it's not one for him.
That's classic. That kind of reminds me of one of my memories. We were fishing for salmon up by Calusa. This is 10, 15 years ago with some buddies, and one of my buddies hooked into a flipping screaming fish, and he's fighting this thing, and we knew it was much bigger than the average salmon out there, right? And so we finally get it up next to the boat, and it's tired as heck, and it's just about laying there on top of the water saying, "Net me." And we look at that fish, it was well over 40 pounds, and we go, "We don't have a big enough net." And so we struggled trying to get this fish in the net, and I'll be darned, we lost it right there. We tried to get it in the net for quite some time, and it was just so big we couldn't net it.
That's a hell of a story too, though. That's I think there needs to be a therapy, for people who are still working through the loss of big fish.
It's funny how you never forget that stuff. That was easily 15 years ago. You just never
yeah.
Those moments
that are just awful at that moment turn out to be, pretty good stories later, hopefully. Right. So they have a little redeeming value.
Yeah, right. Well, they're fun and funny. Like 10 years later, they're not so fun and funny.
No, God, no, not in that moment. No, I had a guy a couple years ago in Sacramento, and he hooked into his first salmon ever. We were down by Clarksburg, and it was him and his buddy, and we were just having a great time, and the fish is jumping, and it's probably 15, 20 pounds, just a really nice chrome, fall Sacramento fish, and get it up next to the boat. and I went to net it, and the net got hung up in the cleat for just a second, and it was just enough that the fish moved that when I got it off of the cleat, I busted the line. I busted the line, and I still feel terrible about that. I haven't worked through the guilt. My Catholic guilt is still very strong with that fish, and that was like 3 years ago. I'm still just mortified by that because I knocked his fish off, and but that kind of thing happens. That's part of fishing too. Sometimes the fish win.
No, absolutely. So how did he take that, Tom?
He was very nice. Because he was a fly guy. He
Right.
said, well, listen, I catch and release anyway. So we basically caught it. And I was like, you're not making me feel better, but thanks.
He probably lit you up when he got in the car to go home with his buddy, right? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, hey, obviously you love the fish. I love the fish. Let's talk a little bit about your guide service. What prompted you to actually start a guide service?
It's something that's always been in the back of my mind. I've always thought it would be cool. I've had my other career, and during the pandemic, like everybody, we had time on our hands, and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna see what this is all about. And you're one of the people that actually encouraged me to do it, so I appreciate that, and I thank you now publicly. There were a few people who told me to go for it, and so I did, and it proved to be a lot more fun and more successful than I anticipated. I only fish on the weekends because I still have my full-time job, right. But I was busy. Gosh, I think I had clients 27 or 28 weekends between March and August, something like that. I was fishing every week. I was turning people away and referring them to other guides just so, my wife and I could have a weekend here or there. It was really fun. And I can genuinely say I enjoyed damn near everybody that got on the boat with me. And even the one guy that was like, he was still cool, but it was like I was shocked at how much I really enjoyed it. Because one of the things that I've heard from other people is, you want to ruin your love of fishing, become a guide. And I think that my personality is such, I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy introducing people to new things. I really like that, and so it's a good combination. Yeah.
Well, I think you're the perfect guy to do it for sure. Not only do you know how to catch fish, but like I said, you're a fun guy to be around. So obviously you live in the Roseville area. You operate, out of the Sacramento Valley pretty much. I mean, you mentioned Folsom Lake. I know that's one of your favorite places to fish, and you've been very successful there. And I've been party to that some of the time as well. But let's talk a little bit about Folsom, and then what about some of the other places that you take people?
Well, Folsom is my main lake. When I moved down here in 1992, I didn't know anything about fishing down here. About 96 or 97, I finally got a boat and started fishing and trying to figure it out. And so I've been probably fishing it since about then. And obviously it's close. I'm 15 minutes from the lake. But I think that lake it just has so much potential, and I've seen it have incredible years, especially for landlocked salmon. The early 2000s, like 2005 through about 2008, the salmon fishery out there was fantastic. Then the market dropped, and I think budget cutbacks and stuff, and they didn't start planting again until 2016. But we were still catching salmon out there. That's because the fish that they planted beforehand weren't sterilized. They weren't triploids. So they actually established spawning runs up the North and South Fork arms of the American River. And so the fish that we were catching in those intervening years were naturally propagated, which was really cool. I think we weren't catching as many as before, but gosh, the fish we were catching were really nice. They were essentially wild fish. Then they started planting triploids in 2016. Fishery has been fairly consistent. This last summer, it was pretty strong, consistent. And so I love that lake. I don't feel like it's given the attention that some of the other lakes get because it is a working lake, more than the others. The level on it's constantly going up and down. And that's a challenge, I understand. But I think the habitat out there is ideal most years for maintaining a decent population of salmon. From what I understand, they're going to be planting 100,000 salmon fingerlings in the next couple of months out there. but I don't know that that's going to help this season because I kind of think the drought last summer kind of fried the fishery, almost literally. I think that we were catching fish through August, and then it was so low, everybody was losing gear. I don't know if you know this, but when I actually looked this up, like in the Folsom newspaper archives, when they started to fill the dam, they left all of these trees along the riverbanks. They cut them up higher on the shoreline because they knew the lake that could be shoreline, that when the lake's drawn down. But the trees that were near the river, they left them. And so most years those things are way, way, way deep. But this year they were like 20 or 30 feet down. And so there's 4 or 5 trees out there. There's one on the South Fork. It's got to look like a Christmas tree. It's got everybody's gear. It's so we were losing a lot of gear and stuff, but you had to fish around them because that's where like a lot of the bait out there, the smelt were hanging out. The salmon were kind of tight in close to those trees, so you'd have to kind of get in near there. But long story short, I think the water temperature got so bad, the water got so low. I fished it once the lake level kind of came up in November. I've hit it 5 or 6 times. I haven't gotten any kings. A couple of guys have gotten some kings, so they're not completely devoid. But I kind of think that the water temperature really screwed with the salmon population. I hope I'm wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I'm afraid that there was something of a die-off out there in the fall. And until I start seeing like consistent salmon catches out there, I'm probably going to tend to believe that.
And probably tend to take your clients elsewhere, right? And so you kind of nail that down. So let's talk about the elsewheres. I mean, where else are you fishing these days? What are your options? And
Berryessa, Oroville. I've got a client this coming Sunday. We're going to go down to Comanche, which has been fishing well. And honestly, I know Folsom better than the other lakes, but I've had some really great trips over the years to Oroville and to Berryessa too. I'm also in the process of getting my 6-pack license from the Coast Guard. Hopefully by next fall, I'll be able to guide out on the Sacramento River. I was hoping to do that this year, but that's a long process. So
I think you and I talked about this. Another buddy of mine that's a fishing guide just went through that process last year, and he said it was painful. They don't hand those out like candy at all. So I think once you've got that, I mean, you pretty much earned that, and I think your clients can take some comfort in knowing that as well.
Yeah, and I really mainly getting it because I want to fish the Sacramento River. You've got to have it because it's navigable water. And when I started taking the course last year, also during the pandemic, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy peasy. And no, like you said, they make you freaking earn it. So I'm probably most comfortable on Folsom and the Sacramento River. I'm getting to know Berryessa pretty well. Oroville, I'm pretty comfortable on. I fished Tahoe and Donner, and I know them a little bit. But those are the lakes that I'm probably most comfortable with. Yeah.
Tom, what kind of resources do you use, to determine where you should take somebody, what's hot, what's not, where to go on the lake, and so on and so forth?
Oh, I'm on several group pages. There's a California Inland Trout and Salmon. I wish I had the name of it. Look it up though. It's a good group page. There's a Folsom Lake group page. I have several friends who are really good fishermen that I talk with. I have several friends who are guides that I chat with. And like, I love shows like Angler West, which is just, you can pick up little tidbits here and there. I'm always like looking for, ways to be a better fisherman. And, so I'll watch YouTube videos and stuff, and some of them are really, really good. Some of them are kind of, whatever. But, I'm always kind of like looking around, because I know that the one thing I know is that I don't know everything, and I never will. And so I try to constantly keep learning and keep an open mind and ask questions.
Well, fishermen are notorious liars. So if you call one of your buddies and he said it's smoking hot on Comanche and you go down there and get skunked, you know why, right?
Yeah. Well, my brother always said, all fishermen are liars except you and me, and I'm not so sure about you. So No, but these are guys that I trust pretty well, and I don't. I get not sharing all the information. That's fine. One of the things I try to do though with my guide business, I don't have a problem sharing information. I don't have a problem sharing with anybody, and I know that some people are like, oh no, but to me, the more people that you have fishing, the more Department of Fish and Wildlife has to take fishing seriously.
Right.
And the more people that we can get interested in the sport, that's the best thing for the long-term success of the sport, and if I can introduce a few people every year to how we downrigger fish for landlocked salmon, and they buy a boat and get into it, I'm happy with that. So I like sharing what I know, and honestly mostly it's not rocket science. It's just there's some things that once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Easy is a relative term, obviously, but just the mechanics of it, the basics of it, pretty easy to get down.
Yeah, and I know you, if you're not out on the water with a client, you're out on the water with yourself or somebody else, family member or what have you, and you're scouting.
A lot of times,
you're
yeah.
doing your homework as well.
Yeah. That's what I've been doing out of Folsom. I've been trying to coax something up from the depths. The other thing with Folsom that's been weird, and I noticed the last summer too, is the trout bite hasn't been as it's been in the past. There's a nice span of about 5 or 6 years, like from maybe 2014 through the year before last, where we were getting some really nice trout, like 22, 23 inch, full fins, wild fish. And for whatever reason, last year, I think I got 10 trout. Most of them were kind of skinny and kind of small. Most of them were wild, I think. But I kind of wonder, did they have an inkling that these bad conditions were coming, so they stayed up in the river arms? I don't know. But like in these 5 or 6 trips, I haven't been able to pick up any trout either. I'm going back and forth trying to, and after a while, you start second guessing everything you do and everything and then you just go fish for bass.
Right.
No offense to bass fishermen. I'm just kidding on that. I can't catch those either sometimes.
It is funny though, because I grew up a trout fisherman, and a salmon fishing. But in those days, it was mostly trout. I didn't get an opportunity to get out after the salmon very much, And it's like you're almost either one or the other. I mean, I've fished for bass before. Don't take me wrong, but it's like, it's like if you're a trout fisherman, you're anti-bass fisherman or so forth.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get away from that. I've always been that way, and it's not because I'm anti-bass. It's just trout and salmon are what I know. I grew up salmon fishing in Washington, so that's the fish that I know. That's the fishing that I know. And bass are fun to fight. I've caught several of them as bycatch, and they're a blast. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, for the first time, I got some, I don't even know what they're called, some kind of jig, and salmon fishing was just terrible. So I went over to a point off of the North Fork, and within 8 casts, I had a nice little bass about 16, 17 inches. Put up a good fight, put a smile on my face. So I need to be more open-minded to that, and I need to. There's so much I want to learn. I want to learn how to fish striper. I want to learn how to fish sturgeon. I don't really, I think one of the things I'm good at is acknowledging my weak spots and then trying to work on them a little bit. So I'm a really confident trout and salmon fisherman. Those other things, I can get better, and I want to get better at them, because it also offers the client, more variety. If we're not getting salmon, then hey, 10 o'clock, let's run up into this cove and let's plug for bass for a little while or something, and give them something to do, give them something to catch.
Well, you mentioned your captain's license and the fact that that's going to give you the ability to get out there on the navigable waters, like the Sacramento River and the Delta. I'll tell you, if there's one species of fish that offers pretty much rock solid fishing pretty much every day of the week, it's stripers.
Right. Yeah, and I've fished for stripers a couple of times with other guys, but I've just, again, I'm locked in my trout, salmon kind of world. I put kokanee in there too, and I just really haven't done it, and I need to. I need to, expand a little bit, because they are a blast. The ones that I've caught have been really fun.
Yeah. The one thing that I really appreciate, and one of the reasons why I've done so much trout fishing in my life and kind of stuck with that and the salmon, is I just love the areas where you fish. I love fishing the mountain lakes. I love fishing the streams. I mean, I just love that stuff. It's pretty just quiet, type of stuff that, gets me sane again, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. I went last weekend. I went up to the confluence and just threw a little spinner out for an hour, and it kind of gets you back to center again. Talking about kind of getting you back to your place. No boat, no nothing, just clomping around on the rocks, and it was nice. It was a beautiful day, and it's nice and relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned how you just like to get people out on the water and introduce more people to fishing, and which of course the benefit of that sells more fishing licenses. That's more revenue to the Department of Fish and Wildlife to do good things for the fishery and so forth. And COVID, I know, and this applied to hunting as well. I mean, the sale of hunting licenses and fishing licenses in California went really through the roof relative to being stagnant for a long time, and hunting licenses have been dropping. Boom, along comes COVID. And if it had a silver lining, people just wanted to get out. And what better way to isolate, if you will, than out on the water or out in the field somewhere, right?
That was probably why I had such success the first time around, especially for a brand new business, because it was really consistent. I was getting calls consistently because people wanted to get the hell out of the house, going stir crazy. And you can, out on the water, man, you got fresh air, you got the wind blowing. And I hope that those people that did that, maybe fishing has been on their bucket list for a long time and they haven't followed through, but that was their chance to. Hope they stick with it and keep fishing.
Absolutely. We talk about just numbers of getting people out there, selling more fishing licenses and so forth. But, there's also been a big increase in the number of women that have taken up hunting and fishing, the number of youth, and even the disabled. I mean, what kind of accommodations do you offer, like the disabled? And I mean, do you ever try to target getting women and youth out at all? Or
I want to do something with disabled folks. I wasn't comfortable doing it last year because my boat, I don't think is perfectly compliant yet. Plus, with the pandemic, I think it was just a different set of circumstances, so I wasn't comfortable doing that. I want definitely to offer that up at some point. Women, I had several women come out. In fact, my best trip last year was a mom and her daughter, and we had, I think it was late July, and by 11 o'clock there were three of us. We had 8 salmon and 4 bass or something like that. I forget. My trophy stick was full, and they were having a blast. They hadn't been out fishing in a long time, and it was one of those days where it was just, the fish were just, willing to play. We caught 3 or 4 really nice kings that were 22, 23 inches. It was a great day. They had a ball. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I imagine it's a good way to kind of reunite, moms with daughters, dads with sons, and so on and so forth.
I love that part of it. I had a single mom, and her son, Isaiah, it was his name, and he was like 4 years old. And I told him, we got out, and this was like early July, and I do Friday afternoon traps. And for whatever reason, last year, afternoons were great out on Folsom. Afternoon and evenings, I had my best trips. And so we went out from Browns Ravine, and we're fishing till dark. And the mom her son had never been fishing before. She just wanted to get him out on the water and take him fishing. And so I told him, I say, okay, now, if we get a fish on, the number one thing you got to remember is just keep reeling. Okay. Whatever's happening, whatever that fish is doing, you just keep reeling. Okay. And I'll help you with the pole and everything. He's like, okay. So gets his first fish in, and it's a nice one. It's maybe 18, 19 inches. And he did it all himself. Mom was helping him out a little bit, hold the pole, got it in, got the pictures. It was great. And then, like, I don't know, half hour later, his rod goes off again, and he's fighting. It's a bigger salmon, and he's and he's reeling, and he can't quite hold the pole. So his mom, you have to hold the pole. And so his mom takes the pole, and she starts to reel, and he says, no. He said, I have to keep reeling, Mom. And so she held the pole the whole time, and he kept reeling, and he got that one in too. And I just absolutely loved it. She sent me the nicest thank you note afterwards. And I mean, I'm getting chill bumps right now talking about it. I love that. Love it.
And that's something that neither of them will ever forget. You just reminded me when you were telling that story when I was up at Lake Tahoe when I was maybe 6, something like that. And I caught a nice a nice trout. I mean, it wasn't 17, 18 inches, but it went about 12. But when you're 6 year old,
Yeah.
a 12-inch fish is a big fish, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was just fishing off a pier or something like that. And I still remember the picture that I took out in front of where we were staying, holding that fish up, right? Some
Yeah.
of some of my absolute best memories for sure.
I used to, in Puget Sound, we used to go down, there's a marina in Olympia called Zittle's Marina. They got this big long dock that goes out. My dad would just drop me and my friend off sometimes on Saturdays. And we go out there, we just have a spool of line and a little hook, and we'd break off mussels from the pilings, and we put the mussel meat on the hook, and we catch pile perch. Those are some of the best fishing trips I ever had in my life. We'd catch like 50 pile perch, just catch them and throw them back, catch them and throw them back. But just that thrill. The tug is the drug, right? It's just that thrill of, you're holding the line, all of a sudden, blah, 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 and you bring it in, and do it another one, and catch some shiners or whatever. It was so much fun. And when you're a kid, I think that if you can get kids into fishing early, that's something they will do their entire lives. At some point, you got to stop playing basketball. At some point, you got to stop playing softball. At some point, but fishing is something you can do forever. I think this is a wonderful area for fishing. There's so many different opportunities. We've talked about it. There's so many different species that you can target, and we haven't even really touched on the kokanee fishery around here. It really is kind of a if you like fish, this is almost a paradise. You get the coast. One thing I'm always surprised at is, like, being from the Northwest, everybody up there like knows the importance of salmon. It's kind of it's a part of the lifestyle up there. Oregon and Washington, everybody, when you're in grade school, you go out and you get eggs, and you release the fry into the streams and stuff like that. And it's just even if you've never fished, even if you've never held a rod in your head, you know how important salmon are. And one thing that has always surprised me down here is so many people just here in Sacramento don't even realize how big of a run of salmon we have on the Sacramento River. And big, obviously, is relative to runs of the past. But in the lower 48, the Sacramento River is the second largest salmon fishery watershed, next to the Columbia River. And so many people every year, going to go fishing for salmon out in the Sacramento. There's salmon in the Sacramento? Yeah. And then I explained to them that these fish, that wild Alaska caught salmon you have, there's a good chance that fish came from Sacramento, because they all go up into the Gulf of Alaska, and then they spend their time up there and come back. And I wish that the state or whoever, maybe it's up to private groups or whatever, to educate people and let them know how important, these fish are. I understand the water rights needs in this state. But as far as I'm concerned, the salmon were here before everybody, and they should have first dibs. And we should be doing everything we can to preserve these runs, because salmon are, I get a little Rain Man about salmon, because I just think they're one of the most magical animals on the planet. They just are amazing that, they do what they do, and they're resilient. And if you give them half a chance, they'll bounce back. But we got to give them that chance. And here in California, I think it's kind of coming around. It seems like it. But, with climate change and everything else, they've got some really big challenges. And if we can get more people interested in, the preservation of them, maybe that helps preserve them for our grandkids and our great grandkids. That's my hope. So I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but that's something I'm really passionate about. Like, when I retire, I really want to get more into the advocacy part of that, or educational part of that, or whatever.
I can help you with that. I often think about that, because obviously I work downtown Sacramento, and I'll be driving, down I-5, literally just a few blocks from the state capitol, and you look off to the west, there's the Sacramento River. And I often think about how blessed we are. I mean, people elsewhere can fish for landlocked salmon and so forth, and we can do that here too. And you've got some great resources for doing that. We've talked about that. But we're so blessed to be able to fish for anadromous salmon, if you will, right? I mean, they're just a whole different beast, and they get flipping big. They're fun to catch. They're great eating, right? Yeah. And I've always been the bigger the better type guy when it came to fish. I talk to people, I'm on the real light tackle, and they're catching little 6-inch trout, and they're making a big fight out of it. And And I respect that, but I'll take a 30-pound salmon any time. I want something that fights me back, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they're an awesome fish. And I would say, like, anybody watching this, if you haven't been out, you don't even have to go fishing. Like, just in the fall, go to the Nimbus Basin and watch the salmon that are at the end of their journey. You know, those aren't the ones that we're catching in the Sacramento. These are, you know, a little more worse for the wear, but that's the way it's supposed to be. And you know, I think one of the things that we're figuring out is that hatcheries aren't the only answer. You've also got to have habitat improvement and you've got to have wild fish too. And there are some success stories in there. And I think everybody's still kind of trying to figure that out, but anything we can do to, you know, kind of get a balance there. I don't think hatcheries will ever go away, nor should they, but we've definitely got to take care of the resource and encourage. I love what like the California rice farmers do. You know, they turn their fields into incubators. They've been studying that for the last few years. You probably can speak to that more than I can. And it's been a success. You know, the baby salmon are able to hang out and hide in there and grow and feed. And then they get out in the river and they're a little bit bigger and they go downstream and they have a little higher survival rate. Wild salmon have a higher survival rate overall than hatchery salmon do.
Yeah, we're getting smarter all the time. I do have the pleasure. I work, obviously, as you know, with the Department of Fish and Wildlife on a whole bunch of wildlife related issues, but I also get the pleasure to work with them occasionally on fishery related issues. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're getting smarter every day. Hatcheries are always going to be an important component, but we're getting smarter and smarter on the wild fish side when it comes to habitat, flows, and all of those things that add up for a successful run. Right.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the success of that starts with people who don't fish understanding the importance of those fish, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think if it's just fishermen, if it's just, you know, sport fishermen, commercial fishermen, I just don't think that's enough anymore. I think you've got to get everybody, and they really are. I would love to see like eventually like a museum down in the Sacramento, some kind of not an aquarium necessarily, but some kind of a nature center, kind of like what they have up in Redding with that Turtle Bay preserve, but down here that educates people on the salmon and the other fish that are in the Sacramento River too. You know, the sturgeon they're native and they're magnificent creatures.
Absolutely. You know, but I'll tell you that the closest thing we've got to a museum right now when it comes to salmon is what you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. We got that Nimbus fish hatchery, and it's great for kids. I mean, adults that have never done it, you got to do it. Kids, it's a wow type moment. Yeah. And you look at those fish, like you say, at the end of their journey, they look like they went about 10 rounds with Muhammad Ali. You know, they're not very pretty, but they're impressive creatures. I've actually toured, maybe you have too. I've toured the fish hatchery, gone into the depths, if you will, of the fish hatchery, and it's a pretty impressive place.
Did you go there this year with the new windows that they have for the fish ladder?
I did not. No, I did not.
Yeah, really cool. And that gives you, like, you're looking directly at the fish as it's swimming by, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, you see those fish, man. They are some TV producer should figure out how to make a reality show out of being a salmon, because all of the things that they have to survive to get back to, you know, in this case, the Nimbus. Think about it, man. Like all the predators and the fishermen and adverse conditions and everything. Those fish that you're seeing are freaking miracles. They are survivors. It's amazing.
It gives me chills because I know what they've been through to get to where they are. And a lot of them don't make it, but they're absolutely destined to try to get there. They're a pretty impressive critter for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Tom, how do people get a hold of you if they want to get on the water with Get the Net?
Super easy. You can go to gtnetfishing.com. That's my website. The contact information is there. There's a link. Like I said, I have a full-time job, but I guide on the weekends. And especially if you've been thinking about, hey, fishing looks like fun, but I don't know how to get started or whatever. I love teaching people, like I said earlier. So, you know, some people might be a little more intimidating. I don't think. Look at me, I'm not intimidating. And I would be happy to show you what I know. And I'm also happy to say that I don't know everything. And there are a lot of guys who are they know more than I do. They're better fishermen than I am. And they keep me going and they keep me learning and trying to get better. And I just think that, one of the fun things about taking people out is getting to know each other too. I've been out with guys that are just they just sit in the back and they're kind of cranky or whatever, and they don't talk a lot. If you don't want to talk, I'm not the guy to go out with. So get one of those guys. I like to have a good time. I like to get to know the people that I'm fishing with, and answer any questions they have and joke around a little bit.
Now, like I said this, at the beginning of this interview, I'll say it again. I don't think there's anybody that's more fun to spin the water on than you, and that's whether the fish are biting or not. So
yeah, and I do catch fish. Okay, I do catch fish.
You
all
do?
Right? We'll get some fish. Yeah. Every once in a while, it happens. Miracle happens. I don't get the net hung up on a cleat, and I'm able to net the damn thing.
Well, that happens to everybody. And last time I checked your website, you actually had a mugshot of me holding a pretty nice salmon, up on that website. Is that still there?
Yeah. And the people on the website, those are only the good-looking people that fish with me. So you made the cut.
Oh, geez, I'm surprised I didn't make the cut. But well, hey, Tom,
if I remember right, that fish, we hunted for that fish for hours. You remember? I think we were out there. It was probably 11 o'clock. We just kept grinding, and we got it off of Beals Point. And it was a beautiful fish. And that's the thing, especially with Folsom. Folsom's not about. Folsom has never really, except for those early 2000s I was talking about, it's never really been about quantity. It's about quality. You might only get a couple of fish, but they're going to be really nice fish, and you're going to have a fight that you'll remember. Yeah.
Right. No, and you're absolutely right. We did catch that fish late, and I think we fished for maybe another 20 minutes or so after that. We had to get in because we had other commitments that we were doing. But speaking of Folsom, though, one last comment. The other beauty of Folsom is you don't have to get up at 2 a.m. and drive for 3 hours to fish it, right? I mean,
oh God, I'm fishing Comanche on Sunday, and I'm up, even though I get up early for my job. It's weekend. I want to sleep in a little bit, and I'm already dreading that I got to get up at 5 to meet this guy at 5:30 or whatever. Because Folsom, this time of year, it's awesome. You get up at 6, you get out there by 7, you're fishing by 7:15. It's great. Yes. So please, Department of Fish and Game, if you're listening, pay attention to that lake. Give it some TLC. It's an awesome lake, and it could be so much more awesome. Just let's all give it a little love and attention.
Give it a little love, right? Absolutely. Well, hey, Tom, again, thanks for your time today. I strongly urge all of our listeners and viewers, get out with Tom on the water, and you'll have a great time. You'll catch some fish, but you'll definitely have a memorable day on the water for sure.
When I was coming up with the name of the guide service, I really wanted to call it No Promises, but my wife talked me out of it. But that's the reality of fishing, right? It's fun, and it in a way it's like golf. The best days will make you go back out, and the worst days will make you go back out.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I look forward to you and I getting back out here sometime soon when you've got a free weekend or afternoon or whatever. Let's do it. Let's get out there.
Well, thank you, Bill, for letting me do this, and thank you for all of your work over the years that you do for outdoors people and sportsmen in California. A lot of folks, you're one of those unheralded people that without whom not a lot gets done, and the work that you do behind the scenes is vital, and it makes a difference. And I appreciate you. A lot of other guys appreciate you too, whether they know you or not.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Tom. Yeah, I'll tell you, I do it because, like you, I'm just passionate about hunting and fishing, right? I mean, nothing better than spending time on the water or out in the field. And every spare minute I can, I'm out there for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing on TV. Go fishing.
I don't watch much TV anymore unless it's a ball game or something anyway.
Yeah.
So, well, Tom, thanks again for your time today. I look forward to our next trip out on the water, and I hope that our viewers give you a shout and they get on the water with Get the Net as well. I promise you, they won't regret going out on the water. They're going to have a ball with you for sure. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to the Outdoor View today, the place where we educate, connect, and learn to protect our outdoor traditions. Check us out on Facebook and be sure to subscribe to our outdoor YouTube channel as well.